Okay, review number one of the week. First review of the day as well. Very late. We are going to start with oil because oil is an inside week, or rather, oil has an inside week. You can see the last week's high, last week's low was kept intact. Last to last week's high and last to last week's low has been kept intact by the last week's low. Upon the open, the low of the week has been taken, so we'll move with that. Let's have a look at the H4 structure. So one thing I was observing last week on the H4 was there's this high right there. We had a breakout, had a dip inside, and a recovery back above. But then on Friday it dipped back inside the level. So now this looks more like a deviation. And it is also confirmed by a high high, a low high, and a low low. So there's the structure forming. Early days, but definitely a downtrend. As it is with sometimes with the inside week, we see that the market immediately takes the low upon the open and then moves back up. Doesn't necessarily take the high out, but does sort of threaten the poor highs of the previous week. Opposite of that also happens. So we have a dip below the inside week, waits, moves up, and then finds resistance and drops off. I am more leaning towards the second um, scenario. Oh, good. We are in the correct account. Hmm. Oil. We have separate channel for oil. So yeah, we are looking for a move back up. And then sell off as a continuation trade. I'll look. I'll show dollar because dollar did the exact same thing last week, and actually that was one of my losing trades. So you can see that the dollar had an inside week last week, or rather last to last week. So there's the inside week low. Where's the inside week low? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So there's the inside week low. You can see that the dollar upon the open of the previous week takes out the inside week low, bounces, goes inside, hits resistance, sells off as a continuation trade, expecting the same on oil. Now, why do I expect the same? It is due to the H4 structure, and it is due to the overall structure. This now looks more or like a deviation rather than a breakout. So I expect the market to continue down from here. So where can we sell? The triggers are there. If you look, let's go to 1.2x extension. So there it is. Clean break and hold below the last week's low should go to the 1.2x extension part of my system. I'll explain that later on, but my opinion, the target's there. Maybe even below that towards the mid range of the previous month, but that is our first target. So, how do we go about it? How do we go about selling oil? Mm. Since we believe that the market is going to go lower, we'll have to assume that the market has put in a high or the high of the week is in, right? So if the high of the week is in, it has to be either there or there. So what I'm going to do is, we know that this is resistance. So you can short resistance, right, or break inside the resistance, assume that the high of the week is in, and then go towards the target. Very low R trade, but this is sort of a blueprint. Take this as a blueprint for the trade to come, which will come when we have more price action. So we'll wait for more price action on oil, but this is my blueprint setup. Apart from that, I don't see anything on oil. It is very choppy, so would not really recommend to trade anything that is not good enough as a trigger. So, any movement like this and then a drop off, it tells you it's going down. I wouldn't really trade it. I need a proper thrust in there, maybe some sort of a rejection, drop off, good trigger, number one priority on oil. Apart from that, we do have the trigger to go down. There's a clean break and hold below the previous week's low. Anything on the GMA? I probably don't think so because it's going to be choppy. Yeah. So again, GMA confirmed that you can short a thrust of that high. Minute 30 says the same thing, and minute 15 also says the same thing. Probably go down a bit lower. Problem is, where do you place your stop? That is big question. So think about this way: if that is the high in, that's a low. That's the high that created the lower low. So your high stops technically should be there, but if you keep our stops there, it only turns out to be 1.4 hour trade, a which is a reason to not take the trade. So stay off of this one until we have some price action, or you could just short it, thrust into that high, you know, big thrust into that high, and assume that the high holds, right? This high holds. Maybe give it a bit of a buffer for an SFP, and then it makes sense for 2.21. But then at that point in time, you're just making your stop up, right? You're just making the stop up. It does not really exist there, it exists there. You know, just speaking from a technical perspective. So we'll wait for oil. Let's wait for some more price action. If it goes away from us, it goes away. I don't really care. So that was the only inside week setup we have this week. Apart from that, we have the CPI on Tuesday, tomorrow, that is. So we'll see how that goes. Honestly, I'm not very keen to trade until the CPI is over. Because with CPI, it's just a single candle up or down. So during the CPI, we'll have this kind of price action. Then you just have that and bam. Or if it has to go down, then something like this and then down. So it's just one way traffic in CPI. Or rather, you know, just one direction in CPI. There's no entry, re-entry, or any liquidity sweep. So yeah, makes me not want to trade CPI unless there's a very good setup. Today there's nothing, we just looked at it. GDP for GBP, don't care about pound auction. Thursday, core PPI, retail sales, and unemployment claims. Yes, important day. New York manufacturing index, I don't care. Nothing. Okay. So pretty much a US based week. And on top of that, one interesting thing that I uh, came across was the daylight time shift that we are going to have. We have already had. So stock market's gonna open 1 hour before it used to. So that's gonna be interesting how it changes the price action. We'll have to see if it changes that at all. Some people will say it has nothing to do with anything, but then the profitability sort of disagrees with that. So main focus is to wait it out until CPI and then go for any kind of a setup. Oil, maybe I'll go for it. Moving on to interesting part. Interesting part is crypto. Only knows how to make high highs. As you can see, we have a clean break and hold above the last week's high. And we know that once we get a clean break and hold above the last week's high, the market likes to move to the 1.2x extension. If Why have I not marked the monthly extensions? So we use 1.5, not 1.4. I feel that's better. So yes, so that's a target for crypto for this week. 4,200 per Ethereum, high probability can happen. How do we go about it though? So, hmm, if you just go, you just follow the textbook. There's a low sweep, there's a high broken. You just bid probably somewhere in there, maybe in there conservatively, and then go for that. But with crypto, you cannot just follow the textbook. You have to be a little more creative. And honestly, I don't know at this point how to get creative with this kind of price action. Again, we'll just put in a model setup or a blueprint setup and then wait for some price action. So a model setup would be basically just buy any sweep of the weekly open. Even that's a far-fetched idea because I do not think that this kind of market should come back below its weekly open. So buy any sweep of the weekly open and assume that the low holds or just give it a bit of a buffer. Maybe that gets taken and then that is your target. Most preferably that. If just if you just go by the textbook, if you just look at things technically, this has to be the setup for the week. Intra-week setup. Let's have a look at Bitcoin. If Bitcoin supports the idea of a long, yes it does. 1.2x extension already into that. So we have want to bring this to the front. Bring to front. High. So again, similar to Ethereum. Any sweep of the weekly open or even above the weekly open as a buy. Assume that the low holds give it a bit of buffer. So that's your setup. 1.3 are definitely not worth taking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave Bitcoin as it is and we're going to risk it on Ethereum. And we'll buy the weekly open. And assume that this low holds. Give it a 1 hour buffer and that's the target. 1.8 to 1.9 are roughly if you calculate the fees. And yeah, that should do it. What are these days? $170 stop on Ethereum. There was a time when $170 stops on BTC were good enough. Now we have that kind of stops on Ethereum. Just goes to show how far we've come on crypto. Anyways, moving on from crypto. So we're done with oil, we're done with crypto. How long are we in? Only 13 minutes. We've got like good 7-8 minutes more. So I'll do things differently this time. I will start with currencies. No, not currencies. I'll start with indices or metals. Let's do DAX because I really like DAX. 1.2x. Okay, cool. So DAX I mean, kind of a sticky spot because again, plenty of levels coming in together. Instead of an SR, they tend to act as a pivot. So above it, market goes above. Below it, market goes below. Right? You cannot just be sure. Right? Once it's above, it's going to stay above. It just comes down, then can go below. So that is an issue with pivots. I don't really like pivots. Honestly, I don't know what to comment on this kind of price action. It's into price discovery. Right? If you look at the daily, have a look at the weekly, nothing. No inside week, no triple swing, nothing. If you look at the daily, we have Friday as the high sweep and a breakdown. Monday market opens into the low. So if that is the low in for the week, we should see some kind of a recovery, buy back up. In that case, we buy any pullback and target the market upside target, which is previous week's high. So that would happen once we know that the low of the week is in. So we have another separate channel for tax. That channel. This is a long setup idea. I'm not sure if it works out the way I want it to. If you look at the H4, we have that flat low being taken, but then that's it, right? That's it. There's nothing else going on. So again, I need a clean recovery above the mid range, above the last month's high, and then we can target the last week's high. If you look at the H4 price action, by the way, going forward from today, uh, I would spend more time on the H4 than I used to previously, because I've seen that H4 structure is what gives away the actual price action of the market, and nothing else really comes close to H4. So low sweep, high broken, low, high, 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 low, big sweep of every low, and then a buy back up. So a pullback in this region and a recovery is most likely the best scenario for a long trend. But even then, I mean, there's the M30 trend of lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. I don't know what to do with this. So I'll just add an alert. I'll just add an alert of market breaking structure, and then we'll come back when it does it. Let's move to S&P. Honestly, I do not like the price action of any single asset these days. Interesting. So you can see we have a monthly expansion attempt, full reset, then a buyback up and a higher high. So that means that the monthly high has been established as a support level. Well, that's the assumption based on this price action. So what can we expect from S&P this week? Do we expect a simple long setup? So in that case, what we want to see is quite simple, right? So low gets swept, SFP, break high, make a high, and then we buy any pullback deep down and target the last week's high. So based on the PNL tool, it would look something like this. So buy a deep pullback, okay, and stop should be below this level, not at that level, because it is an index. It can do whatever it wants. So again, model setup, blueprint setup, call it anything you want, but that is something I will be looking for on S&P. Likely setup to look for, because we already have a Tokyo low sweep, and we can see that Tokyo low sweeps have been working, right? Look at that. That's a deep retest. That's the kind of a retest we want. You can see that Tokyo low sweeps have been sort of working. I mean, they were not working in the past, so they just wouldn't trigger, but now they have been. I don't know, it keeps coming back, keeps going away. Very random. I just use it as an confluence. I do not trade solely on session sweep anymore. Let's see. Let's have a look at Nasdaq. Even worse than S&P. Better off looking without any levels. Let's have a look at the H4 first. So yeah, that is nice. Clean resistance, and then a clean support with deviations all over the place. All over the place. Price action is. Imaginary lines don't mean shit. What I can see that this market is, well, it is not a very strong uptrend, but well, it is a strong uptrend, but it sort of has deep pullbacks. So if it makes a high in there, it's gonna deep pullback into the low and then go for a high. Is that information of any use to us? No, not really. Because that's a monthly high, expansion, full reset, buy back up, cleanly establishes itself above, takes out the high, prints a very negative candle and then drops back inside. So if this market recovers, right, if this market recovers above the last month's high, I would assume that it's going to go for that high. Even possibly going for that. US indices. I want to see NAS recover above the previous monthly high. Hmm. Mid 30 price action doesn't really help a lot because we have this big reset, then a buy back up, and then another sell off. And this time it's taken out that high, broken the structure. Could be a start of a new downtrend. Yeah, we'd keep NAS on the sidelines. Interested a lot in S&P, in DAX, not so much. We have 2 to 3 minutes. We'll just have a quick glance over metals. They're in the league of their own because that is the monthly expansion. 1.2 cleared, 1.5, 1.6 cleared. Next thing that remains is 2.2x extension, and it's only 11 days into the month. 20 days remain. Maybe it turns choppy. Maybe it just keeps going up. But I can see that the 1.5x level is acting as a good support resistance level. So we can play off of this level. Although right now we don't have anything because again chop one thing. The other thing open of the week. Lower low, local low low, low high. If it makes another low low or sweeps that low and then gets a buyback, I would probably look for a long to the last week's high, maybe even higher. But then again, I won't comment on this kind of price action. Silver is worse. Sorry, that was silver. Gold is even worse. Not sure about this. Oil, I am probably a lot more willing to short any sweep above that high, maybe into the mid range, and just have my stops in there as a protective measure. I mean, there's no other way to put it because that is a clear resistance level which was supposed to be overcome by that break or by this deviation and a buyback, but that actually ends up in being a deviation itself. Ends up being a deviation itself. So if that's the case, then any movement inside should attract liquidity, and then we should head down from there. Invalidation would be any break above that high. So I think that's a good setup. We'll take this. We'll take the oil trade. We'll take the oil trade. Where's it? We'll take it. Oops. Didn't need to do that. It is quite a choppy market. It might not look like it from, if you zoom in, I don't know. If you look at it, it's just sort of going higher, but it is not really going anywhere because this level is still there. And it's been there since 14th of previous month. So it's going to be a month now in 3 to 4 days. Anyways, so that's it for oil. We'll take the oil trade. Apart from that, crypto, I will take the Ethereum trade. Yes, I will take this trade. I know it's risky, markets and price discovery is already gone so high. Whatever, I don't care. The market has triggered. We have a clean establishment above the previous week's high, and I think we took out some of the weekend lows, and the market's just gone up. Let's have a look. So look at that. There is Sunday, and there is Saturday. This is Friday. Friday is where we made a high. That is a Friday local low, and what is this? This is Thursday low. Quite a lot of lows were wide. Most importantly, weekend lows were taken. Clean break in MS. Again, three candle breakout. Very common thing with BTC or with any other asset. Doesn't tend to get reversed. So again, entry in there is a very discounted entry. Unlikely that it gets filled if the market is actually bullish. But crypto tends to do something like this. Right? Full reset and a buyback. So we'll bet on that. That is the least risky bet we can have. Right? Anything below the weekly open, probably people will start to shit their pants, and then it could just be a reset and a buyback. That is why we will not do the same trade on BTC. Double risk, I don't really like. We'll come back to currencies later on. Overall, there's not much price action on these things. But anyways, we'll do currencies in the next part of the review. That's it.